Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am coming in with a Q&A. I asked on Twitter, kind of reluctantly actually, because I think I did this before and I used a hashtag and I was met with the sound of silence and yeah, a lot of tumbleweed. So I thought I'd do a Q&A and I put a hashtag out there kind of cautiously, and I actually had quite a few really cool questions. I always feel like with Q&As it's a bit tricky because sometimes it's kind of just saying like, ask me stuff about me. So I don't ever want it to come across in a weird way, but because I get quite a lot of emails asking questions and tweets, I thought this kind of thing is quite a nice way to wrap them all up into a nice bundle. Yeah, basically that. So yeah, thank you if you asked a question or if you had any interest. Naturally it's fine if you don't, but yeah, I thought I would do a video answering your questions, and yeah, should we get going? The first question I got asked was from the lovely Adrian Lola, and that was the best city for a weekend away and why. I am constantly in deliberation about this because I love nothing more than a UK staycation. Probably because I'm not a huge fan of airplane travel. I don't really love the whole airport experience. I get quite nervous. So I love the fact that I can hop on a train somewhere and kind of tack a little really quickly within 2-3 hours. For that reason, my favourite places for a weekend away, possibly, I love Brighton, I love Manchester, and I love Edinburgh. They're my 3 favourite cities for a really fun weekend away at the moment. They've all got a really cool balance of kind of culture, food, shopping, nightlife. It totally depends, but they're my 3 favourite kind of UK cities. If you're thinking further afield, I absolutely love New York. I mean, it's not a weekend away, so maybe scrap that because it's definitely somewhere for a 3 or 4 day break. But I think Paris is great. If you're in Europe, somewhere like Copenhagen is so much fun. There's so much to see, and it's such a short flight as well, like especially that place like Amsterdam. So yeah, they're probably my best places for a weekend away. The next question was from Amy Tibble, and she asked, do you have any tips on creating consistency / a style when editing photos for blog posts or Instagram so they all gel well? I don't think I'm the best expert at this kind of thing because my feed on Instagram is slightly inconsistent. It's a little bit all over the shop. I haven't got a theme per se. I try to keep it quite colourful, mainly because that is easier because there is pretty much colour everywhere, bar my background for some reason. But I kind of tend to I use the same kind of editing apps of things, especially with blog photos. I use the VSCO or VSCOcam presets and filters on my blog photos. So I kind of select the same one for a whole blog post, depending on the lighting or the mood or whether it's indoors or outdoors. So I kind of stick to that in terms of blog photos. For Instagram, I use that same app. I also use a colour story, and what other one do I use? I use VSCOcam as well, and sometimes Afterlight. So they're the ones I sometimes use. There's not really a consistent editing routine I have. I know some people that kind of edit so the whites are exactly the same kind of hue and there's no saturation and they're really on it, and I think that's amazing if you can be that disciplined. But I think just going with your own style as well, I think that's one thing I've definitely learned, is that I try to it's your eye at the end of the day. Everything's going to be consistent because it is your eye and it's your style. So I think if you can keep that at the top of your mind, everything will just fall into place. Trust me. Alicia Davis asked, do you have any advice for those who are new in the blogging world? Do I have any advice? My top tip would probably be to keep at it. I think blogging is quite an overwhelming place or thing to be doing sometimes. I think it's so saturated now, which is it's amazing because there's so many more people that can read what you're doing and you can network and communicate with. But I also think it can be quite overwhelming because there are so many people, but I think keep going. Like, don't be governed by numbers or engagement or all these buzzwords that I use. I think try to just put them off for a little bit, because I think if you can focus on what it is you really love and just developing your own style and actually developing a real love for just writing and tapping away, then that is the most important thing. I know it's so cheesy, but just keep at it. I think the worst thing you can do is be like checking your stats all the time. Even now when I do it full time, I try to not check stats all the time. So I think if I'm loving what I'm putting out there, if it's getting a good reaction, then that is the main thing for me. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm, you know, hitting targets or things. I mean, it should probably matter a bit more than I say it should, but I think just try and be quite laid back with it, because that is probably the most important thing. And just, yeah, surround yourself by lots of people you enjoy reading, and build up a nice little community, because that's really important, I think. A bit more of a fashiony question now. Molly Nash asked me, what is your autumn winter fashion staple? This got asked a couple of times, so I'm gonna answer this. My autumn winter fashion staple is probably this season a really nice pair of jeans. Wow, vague. But I'd probably say like a nice pair of kick flare jeans. My favourites are a black pair I have from ASOS, and I think they're a staple because they go with absolutely everything. So whether you want to wear jumpers, chunky knits, big cardigans, little t-shirts, striped tops, blouses, like lace tops, everything. A nice pair of kick flares with a pair of ankle boots, nighttime heels, ballet shoes, ballet flats. They go with everything. I think they're a really great kind of cut, which is quite kind of trend-led, but equally it's not so trendy that you think, oh wow, this is a real fashion statement. It's quite subtle, and it goes with everything. I wore a pair with like a peacoat today, which looked really cool because it just was a nice silhouette. It was something a little bit different from a skinny jean, but I think they're a really great thing to have in your wardrobe. So I'll pop a few links below of some pairs I like at the moment, because I know ASOS have quite a few pairs. Topshop have got an amazing pair. But yeah, I think they're probably my autumn winter fashion staple this year. The next question was from London Ladybird Olivia, who is amazing, and she said, what piece of career advice would you give to your younger self? This was such a good question. Also quite hard, because I would give myself so much advice. There were a lot of times when I was growing up, especially in sixth form, where I was just so indecisive about what I wanted to do. I interned for ages, and I didn't know whether I wanted to do photography or writing, or I was just so mind blown by all these options, and equally not knowing which were the right options for me. And I would probably just tell myself to keep doing what I'm doing. I wish I'd started a blog perhaps a bit earlier, so maybe get in there earlier, but just keep hanging in there. Don't worry about feeling like the least important person in the office when you're packing up bags and fashion cupboards. It will pay off, and just try and be as nice to everyone as possible. I think especially when you're interning, it can be quite demotivating, but I think just being as helpful and putting yourself out there is hard, and it takes bravery and courage, especially in a big office place with lots of adults or people that are more established than you. I think it can be quite intimidating to kind of be like, hey, can I help you with something, or here's my work, or I just say keep on at that. Don't feel self-conscious, and just keep working hard, because I promise hard work does pay off, because now you are answering Q&As for a living, and it's quite cool. Following on from that, which is quite a nice lead on, Sam Sheriff 2 asked, did you always want to be in fashion? Is this somewhere you want to stay? Yes and no. I kind of always wanted to be in fashion. I think when I was really, really young, I had these phases, which I'm sure every kind of 4 or 5-year-old has, where they want to be like a fashion designer, and then a vet, and then an ice skater, and all these really elaborate kind of jobs which you see on telly or you read about in like girl talk, and they're things like you're like, yeah, I want to do that. So I didn't always want to do it. I wanted to be a fashion designer for a while. I mean, at a really young age, where I didn't quite realise the graft that goes into it, or the skill. But it was kind of always there. I wanted a career in fashion, but I wasn't really sure what kind of STEM of it I wanted to go into. But now that I'm working in there, I definitely would love to stay in fashion. I don't know if I'll be blogging forever. I don't know what the next 5 years hold, but I definitely want to kind of build up my writing portfolio a bit more, perhaps do a bit more styling, kind of branch off and see where I can almost use different skill sets in a way. I absolutely love blogging because I think it combines all of the things I love, but I would love to be able to kind of build up in other areas too. But I think as long as I can still do this and people still read it, then I would definitely love to stay in fashion, yes. Emmy Lou Beauty asks, did you go to uni, and if so, what did you study? I did go to uni for 3 months. I studied English and Communication Studies at the University of Liverpool. I didn't stay on because it wasn't quite the right course for me, but yeah, I didn't go for any longer than that. But it was a great university, and the city is amazing, and the people that I met were so lovely. But yeah, the course wasn't right, and I kind of do wish I'd learnt that a little bit earlier on. I wish I'd been given more options when I was at school. Like, I wish someone had said, you could intern or you could do an apprenticeship and you don't have to panic going to uni. So I do look back and I think, oh, I wish there was more awareness of that. But yeah, it was a good experience. I wasn't the biggest partier. I think on my first freshers night I wore like a duffel coat and was just like, I don't know, I looked like Moss from the IT crowd, so it wasn't quite for me, but it's all experience. Chloe asks, what keeps you motivated and how do you organise your time when it comes to blogging? I am not the best timekeeper in the world. Ask any of my friends, they will probably go, not great with time. But in terms of keeping motivated with blogging, I tend to have like a blogging diary and a blogging schedule. So I have like a big square of paper and it has my month kind of in a grid. And I kind of plan out what I'll be doing every single day in terms of blog content and video content, so I can kind of get a bit ahead. I try to work a week or two in advance. I've always got stuff scheduled, so if I feel unwell, I've got a really huge busy day, I can afford to take a day away from my laptop. So I think that's kind of how I keep organised. In terms of motivation, I kind of think just looking at what other people are doing, reading other blogs, I think sitting on Pinterest, getting inspired. I think as long as you've got ideas, you'll always be motivated. Sometimes it's hard when you work from home to kind of self-motivate. I just think if I get up in the morning, get dressed, almost like I'm going to an office or going to a meeting, I feel like I can have a proper working day on my laptop, and then come 6, 7, 8 o'clock, I can then, you know, put my pyjamas on and try and behave in a normal kind of working way. Otherwise I just get a little bit frazzled and it can be a bit much. But I think I feel so lucky that I can work from home, so I try to not kind of be like, oh, it's really hard. But I think self-motivation is quite difficult. I'm still getting to grips with it, but I think just seeing what other people are doing and getting inspired is really, really helpful. Caro Rainbow Burr asks, the most amazing place you've travelled so far? I feel like I've been really, really fortunate to travel to some really cool places. One of the most amazing places is probably Thailand. It's probably the furthest I've ever travelled, so it was just the most surreal, incredible experience. I've never been to Asia before, so it was completely out of this world. The people were so, so lovely. I also always love travelling to New York. It never, ever, ever gets old for me. It never loses its charm or sparkle or just the way it feels. I think there's just a kind of magic about going over the bridge when you come in from JFK and looking over and seeing the whole skyline that just is like nothing else in the world. It's just like, you feel like you're in a film whenever you're there. It's incredible. Whenever someone mentions it, I'm like, oh, it's my favourite. So that's probably my other favourite place I've been to. Okay, so moving on to the last few questions. Shams Life Adventures asks, what destinations are on your list for next year? And having thought about this is quite a tricky question. I really, really, really would love to go to LA. I've had a lot of mixed things. Some people really love it, some people aren't so sure about it. I'm really, really keen to go and kind of experience it myself. I don't drive, so I think that could be a bit of an issue because I'm very much like, I love walking around cities, and I think it's one of those cities that is a lot of cars, a lot of Ubers apparently, but I definitely want to visit and kind of around like Palm Springs, and I'd love to go to Miami as well. I'd love to just see more of the US. I also really want to go to Sweden. I've never been to Sweden, especially Stockholm, it's top of my list. And again, I'd love to see more of Europe. I'd love to do Budapest. Yeah, there's just lots of different European cities I want to tick off. I really want to go to Bath in the UK. I've never been there. So yeah, just gradually make my way around the UK more, see a bit more of the US if I can. Maybe not all in next year, I'm not being that optimistic, but I think start with the UK and then gradually branch off. But yeah, if anyone has any amazing city recommendations, do please let me know. Next question is Laura Catherine asks, where do you find the little gems and eateries and photo backgrounds that you discover on your Instagram and blog? Do you see them from social media or do you just stumble across them? This is definitely kind of a bit of both. I do a lot of research on social media. I constantly screen grab things. I think there's not a time where I'm scrolling through my phone and then screen grabbing if I see a cute little restaurant or like a pretty location. I follow lots of like London accounts, like Pretty City London, who always capture amazing shots of the city, and they're really great reference points for if you're looking for a certain thing or certain aesthetic for a shoot. Really helpful. But sometimes I just sit on Google Maps, which is really loserish, probably shouldn't admit that, but it's great to kind of scout an area out if you can't go there. I also just love sitting on things like Pinterest. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to stumble across them, but it's in a city as big as London, it can be quite difficult. I think if you're in a smaller city, it's easier to kind of go for a walk and then be like, oh, this looks cool, let's wander in. So it's just constantly kind of scouting things out and talking to people about recommendations. So I think in blogging as well, people are always eating out and doing really cool things, so it's a lot easier to get inspiration quicker. So yeah, follow lots of people. Last question, because I don't want to answer too many because I don't want to go on and on and on, but this was from Leatherbound Writing, and they asked, what are your favourite cooking/baking books? I love this question so much. I would love to do a whole video on this. Perhaps this is my favourite recipe, so I'm actually going to hold out on this one because I think this is a really cool kind of stance. So if you'd like to see that, do let me know, but if not, I really hope you enjoyed this video. It wasn't too me or too waffly. I guess it was a bit me because it's actually answering questions about myself, interviewing myself. But yeah, either way, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!